Welcome to the Pardes channel. Today we explain Prophets, Judges, chapter 21 in a clear and simple way, step by step. We are stepping right into the very last chapter of what has been a ridiculously turbulent era. The Israelites have just fought a truly devastating civil war against one of their very own, the tribe of Benjamin. Now, the actual fighting, that's over, but the smoke is really just starting to clear. So let's dive into the chaotic aftermath of this battle and see exactly what happens next.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start off with context and the problem, then move into the Jabesh-Gilead dilemma, followed by the Shiloh festival solution. After that, we'll unpack some clarifications and key ideas, extract some practical life lessons, and wrap it all up with a summary and conclusion.
All right, part 1, context and the problem. To start, we really need to understand the immediate, tragic aftermath of this civil war, which actually nearly wiped out the entire tribe of Benjamin. The battle is officially over and the Israelite coalition has won. But, there's absolutely no celebration happening. Why? Because only 600 men from the tribe of Benjamin have actually survived, and right now they are literally hiding out in the desert. The rest of the tribe, the men, the towns, all the infrastructure has been completely destroyed by the Israelite army in the heat of battle. And suddenly it hits them. The remaining Israelites are struck by the sheer horror of what they've done. They haven't just defeated an enemy, they have nearly erased one of the 12 tribes of Israel from existence.
Now, we have to look at what happened before the battle even wrapped up. The men of Israel had made a highly emotionally charged oath at a place called Mizpah. They swore, "Not one of us will give his daughter in marriage to a Benjamite." But as the reality of that oath really starts to set in, the people gather at Bethel and they're weeping bitterly. They cry out, asking God why an entire tribe must be missing from Israel today. All that anger from the war, it has completely evaporated, and it's been replaced by this intense, overwhelming grief. So, early the very next day, desperate to reconnect with God and just figure out a way forward, they build an altar and they present burnt offerings and fellowship offerings.
So the Israelites have backed themselves into a massive corner. They have 600 surviving Benjamite men hiding out in the desert, and those men desperately need wives to have children and keep their family lines going. But the Israelites are totally trapped. You have to remember, in the ancient world, an oath made in the name of the Lord was absolutely 100% binding. Breaking it meant bringing a curse upon yourself. If they keep the oath, the tribe of Benjamin goes extinct forever. If they break the oath, they sin against God. So this central question, how do we provide wives without breaking our vow, is the engine that drives all the extreme actions we're about to see.
Which brings us to part 2, the Jabesh-Gilead dilemma. Let's look at the first incredibly drastic, terrifying action the Israelites take to fix this self-inflicted crisis. The Israelites realize, wait, we might have a loophole here. They remember that they made another solemn oath. Anyone who failed to assemble for the war at Mizpah must certainly be put to death. So they do a roll call and they discover that absolutely no one from the town of Jabesh-Gilead showed up, not a single person. So the assembly makes a brutal, highly calculated decision. They send 12,000 fighting men to destroy the town, but with one terrifying exception. They are ordered to spare any young woman who is a virgin. The army goes in, does exactly this, and returns to camp with 400 young women from Jabesh-Gilead who had never slept with a man. Now, while this harsh military action is going down, the assembly is also taking a diplomatic step. They send out an official offer of peace to those surviving Benjamites. Remember, these 600 men have been hiding out in the desert at this geographical stronghold known as the Rock of Rimmon, and they've been there for 4 solid months, probably terrified that the Israelite army was going to march out and finish the job. This peace offer signals an official end to the hostilities. The civil war is formally over. The Israelites are no longer trying to destroy them. In fact, they are now desperately trying to ensure their survival.
So the Israelites present the Benjamites with these 400 spared women. By doing this, they're technically bypassing their own marriage curse. The men of Jabesh-Gilead weren't at the original assembly to give their daughters away. So the assembly essentially claimed these women as spoils of war and handed them over. But there is a pretty glaring mathematical problem here. Think about it. There are 600 Benjamite men, and they only have 400 women. 200 Benjamite men are still without wives. The crisis is only partially solved, and this huge gap in the tribes of Israel is still threatening to become permanent.
This leads us right into part 3, the Shiloh festival solution. With Benjamin still lacking enough wives and that original oath still absolutely binding, the Israelite elders have to come up with a highly unorthodox legal loophole.
The elders remember that there's an upcoming annual religious festival in a town called Shiloh.
And the text gives us these incredibly precise turn-by-turn directions to this town, which really just highlights how carefully planned this whole operation is. It's a quiet, sort of isolated setting where young women come out of the town to dance in the vineyards. Honestly, it's the perfect setting for an ambush.
So the elders pull aside the remaining 200 wifeless Benjamite men and give them very explicit instructions. They tell them, "Go hide in the vineyards, watch carefully, and when the girls of Shiloh come out to join in the traditional festival dancing, rush out. Each man is commanded to seize a wife from the daughters of Shiloh and immediately make a run for it back to the land of Benjamin." I mean, it is essentially a sanctioned kidnapping, totally organized and greenlit by the leadership of Israel.
Now, the logic of this legal loophole relies on a pure, strict technicality. The elders know perfectly well that the fathers and brothers of these kidnapped girls are going to be absolutely furious. They're going to come complaining. But the elders have their defense ready. The original oath cursed anyone who gives a wife to a Benjamite. Well, because the Benjamites took the wives by force, the fathers didn't willingly give them. Therefore, the fathers are totally innocent, the oath remains technically unbroken, and the Benjamites finally get their wives. It's an incredibly extreme, literal interpretation of the law, used entirely to bypass the spirit of the law.
And the crazy thing is, the plan goes off exactly as drawn up. While the girls are dancing, the men run out, catch their wives, and carry them off. They return home, rebuild their burned-down towns, and settle right back into them. With the crisis of Benjamin's extinction finally averted, the massive Israelite assembly that had gathered for this civil war finally breaks up. Everyone packs up and goes home, each man heading back to his own tribe, his own clan, and his own inheritance. The immediate existential emergency, it's over.
And then the era ends with this profound, incredibly famous concluding statement. In those days, Israel had no king. Everyone did as he saw fit. This is basically the narrator's ultimate judgment on everything we've just seen unfold. Without essential authority or any kind of unified moral compass, what do you get? You get rash oaths, you get the slaughter of a whole town, and you get sanctioned kidnappings. It paints this incredibly stark picture of a society that is desperately in need of proper guided leadership.
All right, moving into part 4, clarifications and key ideas. Now that we've completed our step-by-step walk through the text, let's step back and look at the underlying structure of how the Israelites actually handled this massive crisis.
When we lay out the data side by side, we can see that the Israelites utilized two entirely different yet equally desperate methods to save Benjamin. First, the Jabesh-Gilead solution. That was pure military enforcement of a prior oath, which yielded 400 wives. Second, the Shiloh festival solution. That was a legal loophole via kidnapping, which got them the final 200 wives. Both of these were just incredibly extreme workarounds to escape the consequences of their own hastily spoken words.
Which brings us to 3 massive ideas jumping right off the plain text here. First, the absolute rigidity of ancient oaths. To the ancient Israelites, an oath sworn before God was practically a physical reality. It was unbreakable. That's why they resorted to such extreme loopholes instead of just saying, "Hey, we're sorry, we messed up." Second, we see these desperate measures for tribal survival. The loss of the tribe of Benjamin was viewed as a catastrophic structural failure for Israel, and in their minds that justified almost any action. And third, the severe consequences of acting without a unified king. Without a central authority to step in and mediate disputes, local elders just resorted to vigilantism and technicalities.
Let's look at part 5, practical life lessons. You know, even from a really dense, ancient text like this one, we can pull some incredibly relevant advice to improve ourselves today.
First off, there is a huge warning here about the danger of rash promises. Think about it. How often do we make absolute statements when we're furious, only to deeply regret the permanent damage when we finally cool down? Never let your temporary emotions dictate your permanent commitments. Second, the chaos of poor leadership. When everyone just does as he sees fit, societies completely fracture. We need clear, principled leadership. And third, look at how one bad decision forces a cascade of worse ones. To fix their one rash oath, they had to destroy an entire town and then sanction kidnappings. It's a great reminder to address our mistakes honestly right away rather than trying to cover them up with increasingly extreme measures.
And finally, part 6, summary and conclusion. Before we finish up, let's just do a really quick, simple recap of everything we just learned so it all sticks. It all started with that regretful Mizpah oath, where a very angry Israel swore never to give their daughters to Benjamin. Realizing this was going to cause the tribe to go completely extinct, they pivoted to the Jabesh-Gilead attack, using a secondary oath to wipe out a town just to spare 400 young women for the surviving Benjamites.
Finding themselves 200 wives short, they devised the Shiloh loophole, instructing the remaining men to capture dancing girls during a festival so no one technically broke the marriage vow. And finally, with the crisis managed through these extreme workarounds, the tribes disperse, returning to their inheritances in an era where there was no king, and everyone just did exactly as they saw fit.
When we look at our own lives, are we relying on a solid moral compass, or are we just doing whatever seems right in our own eyes? Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.